Hey y'all, I'm Lauren and welcome to Cantina Cast. Today I'm talking about Into the Light, written by Claudia Gray, which was published on April 1st of this year. This is the third young adult novel in the High Republic Phase 3, and I believe this is the second to last book of the High Republic in general, unless there's a book that I am forgetting. Either way, we are getting very close to the end of the High Republic. This book was something I was uniquely looking forward to because Claudia Gray is my favorite Star Wars author. Also, because her book from Phase 1, her young adult novel from Phase 1, Into the Dark, that has been my favorite High Republic novel throughout this whole series. Just because of the way that she builds characters, and I just had such a love for the characters that she introduced in that book. It just made that book a favorite. So I was looking forward to Into the Light because I figured, first of all, based on the title, and second of all, just because it's Claudia Gray, I figured that we would be continuing with those characters. And that is very much the case. So in this book, we do spend a lot of time with Reith Silas, who one of my favorite High Republic characters. Also, we have the vessel crew, Comac, Amadeo, Dez, lots of beloved characters from Phase 1 that I really got very invested in back then. So I was really happy to be spending a lot more time with those characters, and especially as written by Claudia Gray. I just love the way that she handles those characters so much that I had a good feeling going into this one. Overall, I did really enjoy the reading experience of this book. I feel like I got what I came for in terms of spending time with those beloved characters again. I would also call this one a must read if you are following the High Republic, because there's pretty much one big event, like a big resolution that happens in this novel that if you're following the High Republic, you're probably going to want to be aware of. And in addition to that, I just feel like this is one of the stronger novels from Phase 3, and I could be biased in saying that just because these characters I love so much, and anything that Claudia Gray writes, I'm pretty much predisposed to like. But for me, this was probably my favorite from Phase 3. I would say I loved this novel probably just as much as I love the Edge of Balance manga. So for me, those are like the two standouts of High Republic Phase 3 are this book, Into the Light, and The Edge of Balance. The only thing from this book that I really wasn't crazy about is there are some certain things. If you've been following the High Republic, you may have a hunch of what I'm talking about. There's certain things that we still have not made any progress on, even by the end of this book. But we do make progress on other big things. So there's some big things we make big progress on, and then there's some big things that we make no progress on, which does have me a little bit concerned if this is actually the second to last novel. So I think that that last High Republic novel is really going to be doing some heavy lifting in terms of things that need to be wrapped up and questions that need to be answered. So I'm a little concerned about that, and I still felt that way by the end of Into the Light. So just something to think about if you've been following the High Republic, if that's something that you're concerned about, that is something that comes up in this book. However, I did overall really enjoy my reading experience. I still love Claudia Gray just as much as I always have, and I still love these characters just as much as I always have. At this point, I am going to start talking about spoilers. So if you haven't read this yet and you're planning to, if you do not want any spoilers, now is your time to turn back. So this book opens up with we have Reith Silas is doing a lot of missions to help evacuate people from the blight. We're seeing an example of him actually doing this. Planets that have been affected by the blight, him and a bunch of other Jedi show up, get as many people out as they can, and help them relocate to other planets. At the beginning of this book, we also have Affy, Leox, and Geode, the vessel crew. They are kind of being vigilantes against the Nihil. Affy basically has set up the Bind Guild, which is the guild of ships that's talked about in Into the Dark a lot. She set that up to be sort of like a people coming together to fight the Nihil kind of thing. So it's not officially like a republic thing. It's Affy's own private citizens that are doing this together. She's still very much part of the fight against the Nihil in her own way. At this time, it sounds like Lena So is trying to decide if she wants to take Markion Ro's deal that he offered her at the end of Temptation of the Force. At the end of that adult novel, what happened is he shows up on Coruscant. He's like, the blight is here and I'm the only one who knows what to do about it. Sounds like Lena So has been thinking this over. Does she want to take what he claims to know or not? Like, is he actually trustworthy in this situation? Which to me, that's an obvious no. But I think Lena So is just kind of like run out of options at this point. We also picked up with Dr. M. Kampa, who is pretty much the latest Nihil mad scientist now that Baron Bulin has been captured. So she's kind of gone rogue. I don't know if Markion Ro fully knows this yet. It kind of seemed like he didn't, or he suspected that she might have been going rogue, but didn't really care. But she's kind of doing her own thing. And at the beginning of this book, we do see that she has a Sith holocron. And we later find out what she learned from that holocron is about a Sith artifact that comes into play later on in the story. Something else that Dr. M. Kampa is up to is she has figured out how to control the Drengir using a special kind of light wavelength that is from their native sun. Basically, if she uses a certain device to emit this, she's able to command the Drengir to do whatever she wants them to do, and they listen to her. This is a pretty big problem throughout this book, as you can probably guess. Also, at the beginning of this book, we find out that Gira and Markion Ro are still having the same old fight that they've always had. Gira wants Markion to do something with his life. Markion doesn't want to. Gira seems like she's getting tired of it. Something that we also learn in this book is that Gira and Avon are in contact, and both of them are worried about something happening to the other one. So even though Avon still is really disappointed and frustrated with Gira for doing what she's doing with the Nihil, Gira is still her mom, and Avon recognizes that, so she hasn't cut her off completely, but they do have a very tense relationship. We also have Aslan Rel in this book, and pretty much the way I've been feeling about Aslan lately is I just feel like he's giving nothing. In The Edge of Balance, he did have a moment where I was like, hey, Aslan is useful. Now I feel like I take that back and I don't think he's useful anymore. Again, we do see him in this book and he's kind of just doing the same old thing, creeping everybody out, being manipulative, worrying all of the other Jedi masters. And for some reason, they're still keeping him around, even though I don't really feel like he's actually contributing very much. Like, it seems like the risk of having him around is not worth what he actually brings to the table. So I kind of don't know why we still are dealing with him. But I'm kind of ready to be done with him. So what happens to bring all of these characters together is that we find out that the blight is on Kashyyyk. There's going to be a mission to go try to figure out what to do about that. It turns out that Reith is going to lead the mission. And on the mission is going to be Buryaga, of course, Kelnaka. So that was kind of cool to see Kelnaka have a significant role in this book. He's not like a main character or anything, but we do see him on the page quite a few times. We also have Avon is going to be kind of like the main research scientist studying the blight. We also have Affy and Geode and Leox, who all provide transportation. We also have Comac, which is Reith's former master. We have Amadeo, which is a Padawan who recently, in a previous book, lost his own master. And then we also have Dez, who previously, just recently, came back from taking the Barash vow. So he's been kind of out of the picture, but now he's back and is ready to be involved again. Now, somebody else on this mission that is a surprise is Nan, who is the Nihil from Into the Dark, is where we first met her, but we've seen her at some other places in the High Republic. But the reason that she goes on this mission with Reith and all of his crew is because she showed up on Coruscant claiming that she is defecting from the Nihil and wants to help Reith on this mission. So this was pretty surprising, and pretty much everybody on this trip really does not trust her. Even as the reader, we really don't know what to think for most of the book as to if she's actually trying to help them or not. Basically, what she does is she'll give them a little bit of information, but then later it comes out that she was still hiding quite a lot. So she she's kind of like you don't know where her allegiance actually lies for a pretty big part of this. And of course, Aslan is also on the mission. He also does exactly what you expect him to do on the mission, which is get on everybody's nerves, creep everybody out, and not really provide any necessary unique perspective on anything that's going on. At least in my opinion. I mean, he does still have that dark side connection, which is kind of a unique thing because nobody else has that, of course, on this mission. But to me, it's just not worth the drama that he causes just to like stir things up. The purpose of them going to Kashyyyk is because the blight is there, but also at the same time that they're going, Dr. Mkampa is also going, and she has also called the Drengir to go to Kashyyyk as well. So once they get there, there's going to be a lot that they have to deal with. Of course, shortly after they get to Kashyyyk, they do have a run in with the Drengir, and Aslan once again is killing a lot of Drengir. Like he is helping in that area, but I don't know if his presence is totally necessary, but I guess there's a benefit to having Aslan around. There is a moment in this book where you're wondering, like, oh, maybe Aslan's getting better because it seems like he's like feeling the call to the light. There is a time where he's not being so manipulative and terrible. And it kind of seems like maybe he's going to turn things around. But no, that does not stick at all. And by the time we get to the end of this book, he is Aslan Rel once again. Eventually, what happens is because of the way that the blight is spreading, it's not following its typical like pattern. So the Wookiees pretty much are forced to reveal something about their planet that they really didn't want to reveal to outsiders. Just as a side note, real quick, I do just want to add that I would say one of the highlights of this book for me was just learning more about the Wookiee culture and their planet and how all of that works and how their religion works. I did feel like that was a really cool part of this book that just made it a more exciting read is all of the stuff that we get to learn about the Wookiees in this one. Anyway, so they do have to reveal to the Jedi that there is a last remaining grove of white warsher trees, which previously was thought to be extinct. The Wookiees don't really want to tell outsiders about this because these trees are very valuable, so they don't want anybody messing with them, and they're very rare. Even though they don't want to reveal this, they have to because the blight seems to be moving toward the trees, and so they've got to figure something else out with that. In addition to that, the trees are holding back a Sith artifact, which was basically transplanted in the middle of this grove thousands of years ago. And it has a lot of dark side energy. And the white warsher trees are so powerful in the light side of the force that they kind of like negate that. So this is a very delicate situation that the Wookiees do not want to get messed up because if anything happens to the trees, then the dark side artifact is going to like release its dark side powers everywhere, and that's not going to be good. So they all go to look at this grove and evaluate the situation, and we learn that this is called a thorn seed, which is a Sith artifact, and this is what has brought Dr. Mkampa to Kashyyyk. So she's looking for this at the same time that our Jedi are all like kind of putting the pieces together of what's going on here. Eventually, this all leads to a confrontation between the Jedi, Dr. Mkampa, and the Drengir in this sacred grove. During this, Nan brings down Dr. Mkampa's ship. So it is true that Nan did want to take down Dr. Mkampa and is leaving the Nihil. So that is confirmed as the truth. Something else that happens during this confrontation is that Geode sacrifices himself to destroy the Sith artifact at the center of the grove. I was so bummed because I love Geode. And so that, like, I was really sad about that. But what happens is apparently his species, they have a certain ability where they can like heat up really, really hot and explode. But it does kill them if they do this. But he decides to sacrifice himself because it's like everybody versus the Drengir and Dr. Mkampa, and it's not going well. And it seems like everybody's going to get killed by all of these Drengir that Dr. Mkampa has called to this area. And at the same time, it's like, okay, well, if they're all going to die, they also need to destroy the Sith artifact, and they can't figure out how to do that. So Geo just like goes down there and explodes himself in an effort to destroy the artifact. And it does work because when he explodes, it also explodes the artifact. And once that artifact is destroyed, the trees are able to use their full power to actually stop the Drengir. So instead of previously, the trees were using a lot of their power to keep the dark side emanating from this artifact like in one place. But once the artifact is destroyed, the trees have the ability to use their power to communicate with the Drengir and basically tell them to stop attacking and chill out. So Geode's sacrifice was not in vain, but I was still really sad that it happened because I loved that character and I love the whole vessel crew. So I don't want to lose any of the vessel crew. But this does actually mean the end of the Drengir. Once the trees communicated with the Drengir and they sent their light side energy to the Drengir, basically what it did is it converted the Drengir to the light. And the Drengir are like, hey, what if we just actually be plants instead of like eating everybody? Sounds silly, but that's what happens. And honestly, I liked it. I like the idea of powerful trees telling the Drengir to chill out and it working. I thought that was fun. So hey, we did make progress on the issue with the Drengir. The Drengir problem is now over. It is resolved. I feel like the way that Claudia Gray put a little bow on that, to me, made me think that the Drengir really are done. Dr. Mkampa is also arrested. So I believe Dr. Mkampa is also done too. The thing that's really cool is that the explosion that was caused when Geode destroyed the Sith artifact and then the trees like exploded out their light side power to stop the Drengir. All of that stuff going on in the Force got rid of the blight. Now, the thing that I'm kind of not crazy about with that is everybody, including Avon, who is like the chief scientist on this mission, says that this event, there's no way this event could ever be replicated because it had to do with like a Sith artifact exploding with a lot of dark side energy, and then these trees exploding their light side energy out in order to tell the Drengir to stop attacking. Like it was a really weird, unique situation that like is never gonna happen again. So it did eradicate the blight. So Kashyyyk is safe. However, nobody else can like use this information on any other planet that's affected by the blight. So we end this book with no progress on the blight other than for Kashyyyk specifically. Now, of course, I'm happy about that because Kashyyyk is such a cool planet. I love the Wookiees. I don't want the blight to destroy anything on Kashyyyk or their cool trees or any of that. So, like, that's great that Kashyyyk is safe. But we have one book left in the High Republic, and I still don't know what we are going to do about the blight other than what we got a couple of books ago, which was about sending the Nameless back to Planet X. All of that was covered in Tears of the Nameless. So once I finished reading Tears of the Nameless, that was the book before Into the Light. I thought, oh, send the Nameless back to Planet X, blight's over. But apparently we're not doing that yet. It's been driving me crazy ever since the blight was introduced as a part of this story. The book does end on a good note though. So we do find out that Markion Row is starting to lose control of people. And this is something that has been shown to us throughout the book leading up to this point, which is people are starting to not support Marky on Row anymore because being a Nihil kind of sucks and everybody's kind of realizing that. It sounds like his people are probably going to turn on him before long. And we do get another hint about that at the end of the book when Markion finds out that Kashyyyk is fine now, and he's, like, pretty shocked by that, and it's pretty much the first time that he has any doubt in himself at all. We also find out that Nan is trying to convince Gira to leave the Nihil and join the Republic again with her. Sounds like Gira kind of wants to do that, but isn't brave enough to do that yet, and possibly may never be. We see that there's a big party on Kashyyyk, which felt very much like the Ewoks at the end of Return of the Jedi, so that was fun. We also do see that Nan is asked to temporarily join the vessel crew. It could end up being forever, but Affy and Leox are not over the loss of Geode yet, so they're telling Nan it's just temporary for now, but there's a chance that Nan could end up staying. And we also get a hint at the end that Geode may be able to regenerate after his explosion. There was kind of like a question earlier in the book about if that would actually work or not because he exploded into like a million little pieces. But there is evidence based on his heartstone, which that's another thing that his species has where the Heartstone helps them regenerate, and Affy and Leox held on to the Heartstone after Geo died just in case. And based on what the Heartstone is doing, it seems like he might be regenerating. So we might see Geode again. I really hope we do because I love him and I love the vessel crew. So we will see if that actually happens, but there is a little bit of hope for Geode at the end. And I loved the character growth that we see for Wreath in this book. We really see Wreath being so like confident and coming into his own, which is so different from how we saw him in Into the Dark, but completely makes sense for his character based on everything he's been through. I just really loved seeing that growth for Wreath and just throughout the whole High Republic series, just completely seeing exactly why he's grown in this way and what brought him here. So while I do think Into the Dark is probably still my favorite High Republic book, I would say that this one really is a nice companion to that book because I feel like we're getting to see where all of those characters that Claudia Gray set up back in Into the Dark, we're getting to see where they end up and why they ended up where they did. So I thought that was a really nice way to finish out the story of those characters that she started. I'm hoping that we see some of these characters again in Trials of the Jedi. It's hard to tell exactly to what extent we will see them again, if at all, but I don't know. I don't want to be done with Wreath yet because I love him so much. I would like to see him again in the final High Republic book and the vessel crew as well. Let me know in the comments if you've read this one, what you thought of it. And thanks so much for joining, y'all. I hope that y'all have a great rest of your day. Bye, guys.